Hey guys, what's up? It's Schla coming back to ya with another episode of Walks with Schla. And I can definitely say that the more that I use this iPhone SE 3rd gen, that I'm pretty happy. I think I probably made the right decision. Like I said, it's a bit of a 6 to 1, half dozen to the other situation. But I feel like it might be more like a 8 to 1, 4 dozen to another. Sorry, I had to repeat that. It might be more like a 8 to 1, 4 dozen to another. I mean, this SE 3rd gen, the fact that the camera is so much less obtrusive and its footprint is also ridiculously smaller is super nice and convenient. The rounded corners are nice. I think it's probably worth it. I'm a little bit upset, like, again, that I couldn't get the 256. It's just that the 256 version of the 256 gigabyte version of the iPhone SE 3rd gen, it just seems like pretty difficult to get. And again, I really think I lucked out with this one. I got it for such a good price, and the condition is like immaculate. So yeah, and I mean, then again, most of these recordings are only 10 megabytes. So even if I did 50 megabytes a day, that actually does kind of add up pretty quick, doesn't it? Because 50 megabytes a day, but I only do it 5 days a week. So we're kind of looking at a maximum of like 250 megabytes. So round that up to 300 megabytes because I'm not really sure. Sometimes I feel like sometimes well, what am I saying? I don't know what I'm saying. Sometimes I feel like it might be a little over 10 megabytes for some of the car rides with Schlas, but these are a little under. So, well, let's actually just try to do that. I mean, 9 times 3 is 27, and then like 2 times. Yeah, I mean, we could make it could be more like 40 megabytes a day. So you know what, 250, I think 250 megabytes a week is a nice, easy number to work with. And if let's say I record 50 days out of the week, and of course now I'm like embarrassed because I don't even, 50 weeks out of the year, sorry, that's what I meant. Um, Wait, well, first of all, no, no I don't really feel like doing this right now. It's getting to be too much in my mind, but it's 250 megabytes every month is a gigabyte, and that's easy. Yeah, yeah. See, that's nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like that's nothing. 250 mega, like, yeah, like a gigabyte a month, because that means with, assuming that there's some other clutter junk on this phone, which there really isn't, but just 128, you don't get 100% access to that. I could check what the percentage currently is at, but just assuming I have 100 gigabytes, that's still like, that's easily like 8 years worth of recording. So now I could end up recording more frequently, you know so I don't know, but by then maybe I'll just have made a transition to a better product. I'm not really sure, but it's a little bit frustrating. I really, something in my mind, I really appreciate having extra headroom. It's just something that makes me feel good. It really always does. I mean, with my RAM, with my storage, I just love it. I don't know that I need it, but I love it. But yeah, I guess the 128's probably fine. What I did probably made the most sense. And I don't really think there's too much else to say about it. I probably ended up with the right choice. I mean, to spend extra for a 256. I just don't know how much sense it makes. So, you know, it is what it is. I just, anyways, yeah, I don't know. But, what I was actually going to talk, because I wasn't even going to talk about any of this stuff. What I was actually thinking of, and I am kind of coming to realize just how frustrating it is to think the way I do about how, yes, and I know I'm right. Like, there has to be. No, I only say that because it's like I feel like I'm losing my mind because I'm saying things because I don't want to. Again, I have to be careful of how I word things because I think I end up coming across a certain way that I'm not trying to come across like. I mean, I guess I could be wrong. I could be wrong about a lot of the stuff I talk about, right? But when I say that so affirmingly, it's because I feel like I have to overshoot to try to compensate for where everybody else is at. Does that make sense? I feel like that should clear things up because GPT keeps saying and other people say like, "Oh, you're too black and white, you're too this, you're too that." But the truth is like I'm honestly not in particular. I can acknowledge or understand that certain beliefs or perspectives that I have are wrong, but I feel like when I speak, it's like I have to draw attention to certain things. There's certain things that I have to really draw attention to try to overcompensate for where everybody else is at. Does that make sense? Like it's kind of like with the surveillance stuff. I know that there obviously GPT tries to reason me out a little bit like okay, you can't have um that degree of surveillance maybe, and it's like somewhere in the middle, and I hear that and I understand that, but what I'm saying is everybody else as a median, as an average person, is like they're so against it, their mind is so closed off to it. I want to try to compensate for that. So when I say it very clearly. Like, no, like we need to have this kind of a system to compensate and counteract a lot of the problems that we have. Because I think part of the problem, too, is that most people, again, I really think a vast majority of the population doesn't really have a clear understanding of like how politics or economics work and what we really need to do to solve things. I've probably heard one person rattle off some things before that I actually thought made sense. Most people I talk to, they either don't know anything about politics or what they do know is mostly some kind of propagandized information. I mean, it could be from the left, it could be from the right. It really, they don't really know kind of like the ins and outs of what they're talking about, I guess. And so, yeah, I mean, it's scary. It's very scary to me. It's very scary to me. But I think that's part of the problem is like when I talk about things, I have that instinct to need to overcompensate because I feel like I have to. I feel like I have to say things so firmly and say things so clearly just to get my point across. You know what I'm saying? Like just to get my point across, right? Just to like over cuz I have to cut through so much resistance. There's so many people where I bring up good stuff that makes sense, and it's stuff that we really have to start to think about. We have to try to think about in advance because you don't want to have to deal with these problems. You don't want to have to deal with these problems down the line. Like I agree with GPT. We have to start with more of a gradual introduction to these things. You can't it's going to be really messy when everything just comes in all at once, but sadly based on I don't know the way I've always seen people act and the current trajectory of things, we're not really going to have that gradual transition, and there's going to be some kind of a calamity that occurs, and people are going to be blindsided. Oh, now all of a sudden they're being told what to do, and there's a ration, and there's right like it. I just think that's probably how it's going to happen, but it doesn't need to be that way. There's more gentle and there's more ethical ways to navigate this problem. But I think that's what happens when I say things, because I felt like for most of my life that's the case. It's the case that I basically have to overcompensate, and I feel like I'm having to do like 10 times the effort, and I have to say things 10 times firmer to try to overcut other people, cuz other people, I mean, some people will be deeply ignorant and they'll say things with even more confidence than I do, and people end up listening to them, and people end up trusting them because there's like a charisma to that, and there's a but I guess I have to think about how I say things, because I don't know that that translates. It's just I think a lot of speech patterns, it's very subconscious, and so even the way people react to how I say things, I think it's also it's very subconscious of them. It's like they don't really know exactly what I'm doing or why, and then they don't really know why they're saying what they're saying. So I'm just trying to think about that. But what I'm so that's why I think I say things like that. But I do still see, like, I can't understand how anybody can see. See, I'm going to do it again, but I'll try to mellow it out a little bit. I think it's likely that in order for humanity to make a clear forward progression into the future, there will have to be a semi seizure of autonomy. There will just have to be. And I've talked about it before, where you can still retain human personalization, you can still retain human individuality, but it has to be within a healthy framework. Like, we just have to start to cut out a lot of these problems. Like I've talked about, some people, it's their personality to just be a certain way. Let's say somebody likes to be lazy and they like to sleep in. Somebody likes to drink soda, and this adds more potential layers to a human. You have like evil humans and good humans. We really have to start to cut out a lot of the limiting factors. And honestly, I think it would lead to potentially a greater spectrum of individuality, because a lot of times, to me, something like a cigarette addiction or a sugar addiction, while that increases the spectrum because you're going from like a fully good to fully bad spectrum, criminals, obviously. Some people are thieves, and that's like a part of their personality. But if you really crack down on that spectrum, then I think that we could actually just widen up the amount of people who are doing good things. It'll just manifest in a different way. And to cut down on waste, and then not cutting down on waste and having it go all to the top, but actually using that reduction of waste to try to fight poverty and make the system more workable for most people. Anybody who's willing or interested in just, trying. Because right now it's like the opposite. There's grave inefficiencies, and most of it is actually privileged people continuing to have stuff, and it's not giving opportunity to broad swaths of the popular. I don't know what word I was trying to get at there. But that's, yeah, I mean, I really do believe that. I think that I will be vindicated in that sense, that at some point, whether it's open source or whatever, there is going to have to be a semi seizure of autonomy. I did it again with the whole like forceful thinking. I just don't see how we're really going to get progress. I mean, I've seen people, and I don't really know how else you could set up a system to work properly without that. It's like there's just too many humans who will instinctively abuse things it's too, like, you can't. It's a shame. It's a shame, but you know, for a society to be fair, it's kind of what you have to do. But you know, the benefit of it all is that a lot of people will actually be in better condition, you know, because maybe, yeah, maybe not everybody's able to work 40 hours, but instead of some people just being like anxious messes and trapped, some people will work 20, some people might be able to work 45, and everyone will be compensated, but at least everyone will have a place in society that way. Without surveillance, the way it is now, it's messy and it's unfair. Certain people who are born into a certain amount of wealth basically get a free ride, whereas other people struggle and suffer. You know, and it's like, I mean, how is that? How is any of that fair? It just doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. You know, so we really have to combat all that stuff, and I'm still pretty confident that it's going to happen. I think that's kind of the thing that's it's it's very stressful, but I guess it's very exciting because while everybody else is going to be resisting all this stuff, I'm more interested in seeing how it plays out. I actually have an interest in the future, and I respect humanity trying to take steps forward, even though I'm sure I'm not going to completely agree with its implementation due to ethical or exploitative concerns. I'm sure, you know, that's going to be, that is probably already like a pretty big motivating factor. But in terms of what the next step is, it's obvious that that has to be, well, there we go again with my the way I say things. I feel as though it's really the only option. I don't think that this is going to be a dark time. That is, I mean, it's going to be looked back as a dark point in history, but what I'm saying is it's going to be looked back and seen, well, like this was kind of inevitable. If we actually wanted humans to improve and become better, we really did need to have some kind of surveillance. You know, I literally never even got to talk about what I wanted to talk about. I guess I will do that briefly, but I do have to wrap it up pretty soon. I'm not sure. Maybe I will have enough time. But anyways, what I actually wanted to talk about was this idea that we kind of can extend from last episode of shame, you know, and how, yeah, like a lot of people would be overloaded and overwhelmed with shame. There's a lot of good natured and kind people who are just relatively ignorant and they don't really understand, like, that something they do is relatively evil or could easily be interpreted as wasteful or vain, you know. There's a lot of people like that in the world, and yeah, I mean, it's going to be painful for them to change, or they're going to feel bad or upset about it. But the thing is that that's actually, those are the good people, you know, who are actually going to change. And as long as the system's gentle and gradual enough, the caring people, the nice people, will actually be taking humanity in a positive direction. It's actually the people who don't care that are a concern. Now, anyways, the thing I wanted to talk about in today's episode was just the way I am and how, I guess, painful it is because I can see people being wrong in ways that they can't see themselves, and now I'm the villain. That's why I think people claim that I'm judgmental. It's not because I'm actually judgmental. It's because the things I'm judging them about, they don't even really understand. You know, like I almost think if I was judgmental in like a simpler, more material sense, people would honestly not even see that as being that judgmental. People see the things I say as judgmental because they're like ideas and things they don't even know. They have like no idea what I'm talking about. So it stings more, and it seems like so much more abstract. I actually think if I did judge people based on, let's say, like these stupid things that most people do, like appearance and like things like that, I don't even know that people would care as much. I genuinely feel that people are more upset with me because of the nature of what I point out. It's something that really cuts deep, and it's when it's something you've never thought about before, I think people notice it much stronger versus like if I just make fun of somebody's outfit, it's like, yeah, I mean people have probably always, like people kind of get that and just they might not really say it's judgmental. They might just laugh along or give you their opinion as to why they actually think the person's outfit is fine. You know what I mean? But when you have a judgment that actually is real and it really cuts deep, I don't think people like that. I think people want to remain oblivious without necessarily realizing it. People want to think that they're good, and if you make fun of their outfit, that's easy for them to cast aside. But I think for me, like when I point out if somebody has like a flawed thought pattern, then that really, I think it hits home a little more. You know what I mean? And that's why there's more of a resistance and more of like, oh, you're being judgmental. Whereas again, like if you're actually being judgmental in an unproductive way, sometimes people might be less defensive about it or more receptive to it, even though it really should be inverted, right? Like in my case, I would be more defensive or thinking it's stupid. I mean, I wouldn't be defensive, like I wouldn't really care, but I'm saying I would be more like thinking it's worse for a person to um, make fun of a person's appearance as opposed to like giving them some real cold hard information about themselves. But anyways, it's been schla, and now it's time to buy schla. So, see you, schla.